This story happened a long time ago in two places called Brooklyn and Wysteria in the United States. In the early 1900s, America was a land of opportunity, where immigrants arrived in search for a better life. The streets were full of horses and carriages. Big machines made loud noises in the factories. Children sold newspapers and people bought food from sellers on the sidewalks. Life seemed busy and exciting, but not everything was good. In the corners of the city where the lights were low and the buildings were packed with too many people, something evil was hiding. A predator, a monster hiding in plain sight. His real name was Hamilton Howard Fish, but the world would come to know him by many other names. The Gray Man, the Brooklyn Vampire, or the Werewolf of Wysteria. Hamilton Howard Fish was born on May 19, 1870 in Washington, D.C. He is the youngest of four siblings. His father was 75 years old when Hamilton was born, while his mother was a much younger by several decades. The age gap between his parents was significant. By the time Hamilton turned 5 years old, his father passed away, leaving the family in financial struggle. From an early age, Hamilton hated his given name. Other children would tease him by calling him Ham and Eggs. To avoid being bullied, he started calling himself Albert, coming from the name of his deceased younger brother. The name Albert stayed with him, and from that moment on, the world knew him as Albert Fish. Financial struggle was not the only problem they have. Mental illness ran deep in his family. Her mother suffered from hallucinations. His brother spent time in a mental institution, and other relatives battled psychological disorders. His uncle was diagnosed with mania, and her sister was said to struggle with her own mental afflictions. Since her mother is unable to support everyone in the family, young Albert was sent to St. John's Orphanage, a harsh and cruel place. The orphanage was terrifying. The children were beaten, starved, and humiliated. But young Albert was different. He didn't fear the pain, he enjoyed it. When he was whipped, he smiled. When others cried, he remained silent. Something inside him was changing, transforming. By the time his mother reclaimed him, it was too late. He had already developed disturbing behaviors. Self-inflicted pain, an obsession with suffering, and dark thoughts that would soon take over his life. Young Albert grew up surrounded by mental illness and instability. On July 14, 1924, a warm summer afternoon, an 8-year-old girl was playing outside her home in Staten Island when an elderly man approached her. He spoke kindly and offered her money to help with small chores. The little girl was about to go with him when her mother suddenly appeared at the door. The scene was suspicious, so he sent the elderly man away. That man was Albert Fish. But he wasn't done. That night, long after the family had gone to sleep, Albert returned to their property. He hid inside their barn, lurking in the darkness, waiting for another chance to take the girl. But luck was on her side. Her father noticed movement outside and went to investigate. When he found the strange old man hiding inside, he confronted him. Albert quickly fled into the night, disappearing before the father could stop him. The girl was safe. This encounter proved how persistent and dangerous was Albert. On July 15, 1924, just a day later, a 9-year-old boy was playing alone near a vacant lot when he encountered the same elderly man. Albert charmed the boy, offering him candy and promised to have an adventure. Unfortunately, the boy trusted and followed him. Albert led him far from home, taking him to an isolated wooded area. Once there, the boy realized it was too late and that something was wrong. The friendly old man's kindness turned into cruelty. Albert tortured him in unspeakable ways before taking his life. His body was later discovered, brutally mutilated, confirming the unimaginable suffering he endured. On February 11, 1927, a 4-year-old boy was playing with his friend in the hallway of their Brooklyn apartment building. When his friend went inside for a moment, the boy was left alone. Minutes later, he was gone. A wide search followed, but the only clue that came from a witness was an old man with a gray mustache was seen leading the boy away. No one knew what happened to the boy. On May 28, 1928, on this day, he visited the home of a working-class family in New York. Albert posed as a wealthy farmer named Frank Howard. He claimed he needed workers for his farm, and he first offered a job to their teenage son. However, as he spoke with the family, he shifted his focus to their 10-year-old daughter. Albert told them about a birthday party for his niece and asked if the girl could join him first before heading to the farm. Her parents, trusting the harmless old man, agreed. The girl left with him, excited about the party. Unfortunately, their daughter never came home. For 6 long years, the devastated family searched for answers. On November 1934, a letter arrived at their home. When her mother read it, she collapsed in horror. The letter, written by Albert himself, described the unspeakable things he had done to their child before finally killing her. The details were so graphic that parts of the letter were never made public. This letter was the key to catch Albert Fish. The detectives traced it back to a boarding house, and finally they were able to catch Albert Fish on December 13, 1934. Following his arrest, Albert Fish made chilling claims about the extent of his crimes, suggesting that he had taken the lives of more than 100 children across the country. However, despite his disturbing confessions, only 3 of his murders were ever officially confirmed by authorities. Whether his claims were exaggerated or horrifyingly true remains a mystery, but the possibility of additional victims cast an even darker shadow over his already gruesome legacy. When his case went to trial, it took the jury only 10 days to reach a verdict, a remarkably short time given the horrific nature of the crimes. Despite his defense team's attempt to plead insanity, arguing that Fish was not in control of his actions, the court ultimately found him guilty of first-degree murder. Although his mental state had been widely debated, his crimes were considered so heinous that the jury decided he deserved the maximum punishment. As a result, he was sentenced to death by electrocution, sealing his fate. On January 16, 1936, Albert Fish was escorted to the execution chamber at Sing Sing Prison in Ossining, New York, where he would face the electric chair. Unlike many others who had walked that same path before him, he showed no fear. In fact, to the shock of the guards and witnesses, he seemed to embrace his execution, viewing it as the final and ultimate thrill in a life defined by cruelty and depravity. Moments before he was strapped into the chair, he turned to the guards and uttered an unsettling statement, saying, "It will be the supreme thrill of my life." As the executioner flipped the switch, a powerful surge of electricity rushed through his body, intended to bring his life to an immediate end. However, there was an unexpected complication. Over the years, Fish had embedded dozens of needles into his body, a habit born from his disturbing obsession with self-inflicted pain. These metal objects interfered with the electrical current, disrupting the circuit and causing the execution to take longer than usual. Instead of a swift death, the process had to be repeated, requiring 2 separate jolts before the execution was complete. After the second shock, Albert Fish was finally declared dead, bringing an end to one of the most horrifying chapters in American crime history. Though his life was over, his story remained one of the most chilling examples of true evil, a reminder of how depravity can sometimes hide behind the mask of an unassuming old man.